The Vampire and Adam, written and performed by Tony Capobianco. The shadow of darkness dominated the room. There were no windows for rays of light to enter. The sun was not welcome here. Without a view of the sun, moon, and stars, it was impossible to keep track of time. Adam couldn't even tell if it was day or night, much less what day it was. Faint, flickering lights from a few candles weakly penetrated the blackness. He assumed it was night when the fiendish creature fed upon his blood, but it was so dark in his captivity that he supposed a vampire could move about freely, whether it be day or night. Adam wondered how long he had been held captive in that dank, dark dungeon, but it was impossible for him to tell. All he knew for certain was that he was a prisoner of darkness. Sinister silence stifled Adam's mind. Not a sound was heard. There was no sound of footsteps, no sound of voices, no sound of rain or wind. A maddening hush permeated the cell and any unfortunate captive held within it. Whoever said that silence was golden had never experienced the vile, captive stillness of dread, derangement, and despair. Psychological anguish was Adam's constant companion. The death of Laurie Haddonsmith, his best friend, would have been painful enough, even if it had been caused by natural circumstances. Seeing as Laurie had not only been murdered, but murdered by a vampire, the anguish of loss was far greater. The fact that everyone believed that he had murdered Laurie and 12 other girls further added to his mental misery and grief. In case those facts wouldn't be enough to break a man, the fact that he couldn't go to the police, even if he ever could escape this dark prison, further broke his spirit. The diabolical vampire had slaughtered 2 female sheriff's deputies and made sure that Adam would be blamed for that as well. It all sounded insane. Adam Gabriel might have believed that he was crazy, had it not been for a hellish fact. The fact that the grotesque vampire routinely fed from him made it impossible to deny that this was all a living, undead nightmare. Painful marks on his inner elbow and on his neck proved that this was no hallucination. Vampire bite marks puncture more than a person's flesh. They also pierce the soul. Escape was impossible. The dimly lit prison wasn't a basement. It was in fact a cave. The only entrance or exit was blocked by a massive boulder. Adam's strength had not wasted away on account of the fact that his captor had kept him well fed. The vampire made certain that his prisoner ate, just as a farmer fattens up his livestock. Even with his full strength, Adam was incapable of moving the enormous boulder. No mere mortal could move that huge rock, not even an inch. Yet the infernal beast moved the giant stone aside with great ease each time he came to Adam. Like a rat in a cage, there was no way out. The sound of rock scraping against rock shattered the chamber of silence. Adam knew that sound all too well. It meant that the monster was coming to feed him and to feed upon him. While he didn't know how long he'd been trapped in this living hell, it had been long enough for him to have been conditioned by this sound. Shaking with fear, Adam backed up against the wall of the cave. It was as though he was desperately trying to enter the rock, like a child nestling into a bush in order to hide from some terror. "Ha ha ha! You are pathetic, puny mortal," said the vampire. Unable to hide, unable to run, Adam channeled all of his anger and fear into a blind rage. He sprinted directly toward the vile beast that had taken everything from him. He balled his right hand into a fist, and he launched it at the monster's jaw. The sound of paper being crumpled filled the room. The master had caught Adam's punch with his large right hand. He effortlessly shattered multiple bones in Adam's hand. Powerless, the captive was forced to his knees as he winced from excruciating pain. "Fool! You're even more pathetic than an insect. At least they can bite and sting their attackers before they die," the master jeered. "If you're going to kill me, just do it. Get it over with," said Adam with his head hung low. "Life, death, everything in between. It's all up to me. I hold your fate in my hands. You are my slave, and I am your god," said the master as he let go of his grasp on Adam's broken hand. "And fear ye not them that kill the body, and are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him that can destroy both soul and body in hell," Adam replied, with his eyes fixed on the flickering candlelight. Matthew chapter 10, verse 28. Why does it surprise you that I have read your silly scriptures? Do you think that citing the gospel will act as some kind of magical incantation? Do you believe that it will protect you? Ha 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 ha! The master cackled with his dreadful red eyes glimmering in the dark. "Continue to torment me, drain my blood, break my bones. It doesn't really matter. You can do all these things to my flesh, but you can't kill my spirit. In fact, you don't have the power to even touch my soul. I'll never worship you. You are a disgusting devil," Adam responded with a new conviction in his voice. "You are an imbecile. You know nothing of the things of which you speak. Where is your God now? Has your faith protected you from me? Did your so-called God save your precious Lori? No. No, your faith didn't help you at all. It's ridiculous. Your faith is folly," the master snarled. Rising to his feet, Adam replied, "It is you who is the real fool. You think that you are all-powerful, but you can't make me worship you. You can't change my heart or will. This makes you angry. Your pride, along with your heinous deeds, will plunge you into hell for all eternity." With his left hand, the master vampire grabbed Adam by his throat, picked him up 3 feet off of the ground, and said, "You know nothing. You who don't even know how long you've been my prisoner, presume to know me. You believe that I came from hell, and that I must return to hell. Wrong. You say that you don't fear me. Lies. You are wrong about a great many things. The only reason that I haven't compelled you to worship me is because it pleases me to watch you suffer. Blood that has suffered and marinated in fear and despair is a true delicacy. Despite your pious religious recitations, I taste the fear, anguish, and despair in your blood. It tastes absolutely exquisite. "Damn you to hell, you demonic parasite!" screamed Adam. Flying halfway across the chamber, Adam crashed against the wall after the powerful vampire flung him like a rag doll. Squatting down, resembling a perched raven, the master began to speak again. "Listen to me, my slave. I have a story to share with you. The world thinks that you were very busy again tonight. I chose another victim to add to the litany of kills that everyone believes you are responsible for. The media calls you Tut, the Undead Terror. I've made you famous. The press loves covering sensational crimes. They profit from death. I've transformed you into the most infamous serial killer of all time. Pathetic as I know that you are, they all see you as a living legend. They call you the Nightmare Man. The entire Atlantic coast is terrified. This fear, in your name and honor, ensures that millions of people have been marinating in fear. Millions of tasty meals await me and my children. Tonight was especially memorable. Listen closely, slave. A beautiful young girl, about 19 years old, left a church around 9:15 p.m. Allie was her name. I watched her get into her car. Flying above her vehicle, I followed her home. There really isn't anything as exhilarating as flying through the night sky hunting prey. As she got out of her car, the outside garage lights made her long black hair glisten. She had only taken 2 steps toward her house when I swooped in and carried her deep into the woods. Privacy is what I wanted. I had such fantastic games planned for us. After I dropped her onto the ground, she pleaded for me to let her go. At first she thought that I was the devil. Then she saw my big fangs. Fear washed over her face. She grabbed the crucifix from around her neck, pointed it at me, and told me to get back. I stepped back as though I had been hurt or frightened of her crucifix. A look of relief replaced the former look of fear. As she stepped forward in an attempt to drive me further away, I spun around and faced her. I put my right hand over the cross as she held it, and I crushed it like a toy. Pure terror resided behind her naive and innocent eyes. Her face had transformed from an expression of relieved confidence to a mask of frantic fear. I could hear the irresistible sound of her heart beating faster and faster. The sound of a frightened heart filled with adrenaline is like the ultimate dinner bell for a vampire. Drinking that particular kind of blood is like the most euphoric drug or pleasure that you could imagine. Allie was about to be a meal that I would savor. Some young vampires will frenzy and drink a human blood bag dry in mere seconds. I, on the other hand, often like to prolong the dark pleasure. Prolonging it is precisely what I did tonight. I grabbed the girl's wrist and drank some of her blood. It was oh so tasty. Then I let her run for 30 yards or so in the woods, only for me to appear in front of her with my burning red eyes. So scared was she that she fell down. This time I sank my teeth into her inner thigh and fed some more. After a few minutes, she got up and I invited her to run and scream some more. She acquiesced. I allowed her to run for about 5 minutes, and then I ended our game. I appeared before her and growled. She became paralyzed with fear. I then tore into her delicate throat with my sharp fangs. I drank the life right out of her. Not a drop was spared. Adam's eyes grew large as he pointed a finger at the fiend and said, "You are a sick and twisted piece of filthy excrement." "Oh, and don't worry, my slave. I made sure to leave one of your hairs on Allie's dead body. It's another number to add to your list of victims," said the master as he smirked. "You will get what you deserve, you evil, rotten monstrosity. Heaven will strike you down one day, and I hope I'll be there to see it," Adam responded with a smoldering expression. "You still don't get it, do you? Foolish mortal. I chose a devout Christian girl who had just left church to be my victim tonight. She begged your God to save her. She begged for heaven to stop me. She commanded me to stop while invoking her faith. How did that work out for her? I toyed with her, terrified her, and then I killed her. She meant no more to me than a chicken does to a butcher. Your faith is in vain, and now it's time for me to open your vein. Your heart is racing. I can smell your fear, anger, and despair, and now I want to savor the taste." The vicious vampire walked slowly towards its prey. The sound of Adam's heart pumping faster and faster seemed to put the blood-sucking fiend into a trance-like state. The unnatural creature became more and more consumed by the lust for Adam's blood. All of the vampire's maniacal manipulations had cultivated the desired fear, dread, and despair within Adam. This unholy trinity of emotions transformed Adam's blood into the kind of blood that is most coveted by vampires. The master's mind recalled how this tormented blood tasted each of the previous times that he had slurped it up drop by precious drop. It was as though he could already taste it. The prize would once again be his in just a few brief moments. The fiendish creature would savor the rotten fruit of its labor. Suddenly, the sound of rock grinding against rock broke the deadly silence of the chamber. The master vampire was so possessed by his bloodlust that it took him about half of a minute to acknowledge the sound. When he did finally realize that the sound came from the movement of the massive boulder which blocked the entrance, it was too late. A young woman whose long black hair glistened in the light of the full moon fired a wooden arrow from her crossbow into the vampire's unholy chest. Her blue mantle flowed in the wind. The back of her blue cloak had the insignia of a cross and a glowing sword, each of which fired a ray of light through a large serpent. Adam sat motionless in utter silence. For the first time in what seemed like an eternity, the burning fire of hope ignited in his heart. He didn't know who this gorgeous young lady was, but he was mesmerized by her. "Ha ha 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 ha!" The ancient vampire let out a guttural laugh. He then said, "You brave but foolish girl. That doesn't work on me. You'll need more than a pathetic piece of wood to keep me down." The shadow of a tall man was seen right outside of the cave's entrance. As he stepped closer, the ancient master vampire saw that this man was also wearing a blue cloak over his black pants and black shirt. His cloak also carried the same insignia that his brave female companion was wearing. The emblem on the man's black shirt was a red circle with the words "Red Redemption" spelled out in a clockwise fashion around the circle. a golden eagle was featured within the red circle. As the man stepped closer, the master recognized the man and his scent. It was Agent Kono Castabello. Stunned, the master ripped out the wooden arrow from his chest and tossed it to the ground and said, "What is the meaning of this? How did you find me? How did you move that gigantic stone? How did you come to wear the sickening symbol of the Kaibo? They are extinct." Seems like someone doesn't have all the answers this time. I recall that last we met, you told me that you were an immortal god. Well, I'm not impressed at all, Kono Castabello responded, while looking at the monster with a laser-like focus. You shouldn't be able to remember our last meeting because I compelled you to forget me. No matter, I won't be as merciful to you this time. I'm going to rip you and your little girlfriend apart limb from limb. Then I'm going to slurp up all your blood, said the master vampire as he snarled and flashed his large, sharp fangs. Raising his right hand, Kono Castabello revealed a cross that was adorned with 5 beautiful gems or crystals. It was once believed that these 5 crystals were meant to convey the 5 wounds of the crucified Christ. The master saw this and staggered back a few steps. He was in shock and disbelief as he said, "No, that's not possible. It can't be. That's an Amun-Ra cross. Even so, you couldn't know how to use it." Yes it is, and yes I do. Dance for me in the pale moonlight, replied Kono Castabello as he shot the vampire with white-hot, laser-like rays of light which amazingly emanated from the cross. 5 rays proceeded from the 5 crystals adorned on the cross. Each crystal had glowed and released a blinding beam of heat. The scorching rays hit and went through the vampire's left shoulder. The master vampire shrieked with pain and flew out of the cave and into the night sky. Adam's captivity ended. He had been liberated. Adam, Kono Castabello, and the beautiful lady walked into the moonlight. Written and performed by Tony Capobianco. I hope that you enjoyed your stay here at the haunted Half Moon Inn. The master requests that you consider supporting me and the inn by becoming a a patron of mine on Patreon. The Half Moon Inn needs your support to keep the doors open. You wouldn't want the residents here to feel forgotten and abandoned, would you? Creating quality scary stories to share with you is very important to me. Running this inn of horror is a passion of mine, and I would truly appreciate your support. The world is hurting. It needs more horror. Help me to heal the world through horror. Together, with your help, we could haunt this world one home at a time. Until next time, always remember, just because you don't see them doesn't mean that they aren't there.
you.